In the darkness of the mountain forest, the SEAL team prepared for their assault. A woman with long brown hair and a compact frame spoke in a low voice. "Stop! There's a trap ahead." The young soldiers laughed dismissively. "What do you think you see in this darkness?" They continued forward. Their commander froze, his eyes tense, leaning close to his radio and whispering, "Sergeant, take the shot." A clean gunshot rang out, confirming she was right. The entire team stood frozen in shock. Reina Vasquez had become background noise to the elite Navy SEAL team she'd been assigned to support. At 30, with long chestnut hair that she kept carefully secured and a compact frame that seemed almost delicate next to the imposing figures of the Special Operations warriors, she had mastered the art of being functionally invisible. Her official role was Technical Support Specialist, a vague designation that meant she carried equipment, maintained communications gear, and provided whatever backup the team needed during their classified missions. To most of the SEALs, she was simply part of the support infrastructure, as unremarkable as the radios and GPS units she helped maintain. "She's here to carry our gear and stay out of the way," Petty Officer First Class Marcus Johnson would mutter to his buddies during equipment checks. "Not sure why they even send technical support on these ops. We've been doing this fine without babysitters." The younger team members were even less charitable. "I heard she's some kind of communications expert," Seaman Rodriguez would joke during downtime. "Expert at what? Making sure our radios don't break? My little sister could do that job." But Reina had long ago stopped expecting recognition or respect from people who measured worth by physical presence and volume of voice. She found her purpose in the small, unnoticed acts of service that kept the team functioning at peak efficiency. When Petty Officer Williams pulled the night watch and ran out of water during a 12-hour surveillance mission, Reina quietly left her own water bottle next to his position without saying a word. When new team member Seaman Chen discovered his body armor had been damaged during a training exercise, Reina spent her off-duty hours repairing the ballistic panels with a precision that would have impressed any military armorer. She cleaned weapons that weren't her responsibility, double-checked equipment inventories to catch mistakes before they became mission failures, and somehow always seemed to anticipate what the team would need before they realized they needed it. These acts of competence and care were either unnoticed or dismissed as just doing her job by men who had been trained to rely only on themselves and their immediate brothers in arms. Hidden in her personal gear, wrapped carefully in a piece of black cloth, was a silver challenge coin that she looked at every night before sleep. One side bore the image of a hawk in flight, wings spread wide, eyes focused with predatory intensity. The other side was engraved with text that would have shocked anyone who bothered to read it. "Silent Hawk, 203. Confirmed eliminations, Kraken unit." The coin represented a life that felt increasingly distant from her current role as overlooked support staff. Silent Hawk had been a name that enemy combatants whispered in fear, a designation that commanded instant respect in the most classified briefing rooms in the Pentagon. But that person seemed like someone from another lifetime now, buried beneath layers of guilt and the kind of loss that changes the fundamental architecture of who you are. As Reina completed her evening equipment check in preparation for their next mission, Seaman Chen approached her hesitantly. He was the newest member of the team, still adjusting to the culture of elite special operations. "Hey, Reina," he said quietly. "I wanted to thank you for fixing my armor yesterday. The stitching was perfect, like professional quality. Where did you learn to do work like that?" Reina paused in her inventory check, her hands stilling on a piece of night vision equipment. For just a moment, muscle memory took over, and she found herself assessing Chen's position, his vulnerability, the potential threat approaches to their current location. "You pick up skills when you need them," she said simply. "The important thing is that your equipment will protect you when it matters." Chen would later recall, "When I missighted my rifle during training, she quietly adjusted it without making me feel stupid. Her touch on that weapon was so sure, so precise. I knew she understood firearms in ways they don't teach in basic training." The mission briefing had been straightforward. Infiltrate a suspected terrorist compound in the mountainous border region, gather intelligence on weapons caches, and extract without engagement if possible. It was the kind of operation the SEAL team had conducted dozens of times, routine enough that some of the younger team members were treating it almost casually. But as they moved through the dense forest in the pre-dawn darkness, Raina felt every instinct she had developed over years of combat operations screaming that something was wrong. The forest was too quiet. The wildlife sounds were off. The wind patterns didn't match the weather briefing they had received. Small details that individually meant nothing, but together painted a picture that made her blood run cold. "Hold position," she whispered into her headset as the team approached a clearing that provided the most direct route to their objective. "Negative," came the immediate response from team leader Lieutenant Commander Sarah Brooks. "We maintain schedule. Continue to waypoint Alpha." But Raina could see what the others couldn't, or wouldn't. The undergrowth near the tree line had been disturbed in patterns that suggested recent human activity. The placement of fallen logs created natural firing positions. Most importantly, there was a glint of metal reflecting starlight from an elevated position that should have been empty forest. "Commander, I'm seeing signs of prepared positions. Recommend alternate route." The response came not from Commander Brooks, but from Petty Officer Johnson, his voice carrying barely concealed irritation. "Vasquez, your technical support. Leave tactical decisions to the people trained for them." "I'm seeing movement patterns that suggest—" "What you're seeing," interrupted Seaman Rodriguez, "is shadows and paranoia. We've got satellite imagery showing this area is clear." Raina bit back her response. She had learned long ago that arguing with people who had already dismissed her expertise was a waste of energy and potentially dangerous for team cohesion. But she also couldn't ignore what her trained senses were telling her. As the team prepared to cross the clearing, Raina closed her eyes and focused on the subtle sounds of the forest around them. It was a technique she had perfected during her previous life, when the ability to detect threats invisible to others had meant the difference between successful missions and body bags. The wind carried the faint metallic click of a bolt being cycled, the barely audible whisper of fabric against tree bark, the controlled breathing of someone maintaining a firing position for an extended period. "Sniper," she whispered urgently. "Approximately 300 meters, 11 o'clock position. Do not proceed." "Jesus, Vasquez," Johnson hissed into his radio. "You're jumping at shadows. There's nothing out there but trees and rocks." But Commander Brooks had stopped moving. Unlike the younger team members, she had enough combat experience to recognize the difference between paranoia and professional intuition. She studied Raina's face in the green glow of their night vision equipment, noting the absolute stillness that had overtaken the smaller woman. "What exactly are you seeing?" Brooks asked quietly. "I'm not seeing. I'm hearing. There's a shooter in an elevated position, probably with night vision and a suppressed rifle. If we cross that clearing, he has clear sight lines to take out at least 3 team members before we can locate his position." Rodriguez rolled his eyes. "Commander, we can't base tactical decisions on hunches from support personnel." "It's not a hunch," Raina replied, her voice taking on a tone that made several team members look at her more closely. "There's a shooter up there. I'd stake my life on it." "You might have to," Johnson muttered. But Commander Brooks was studying the terrain with the careful attention of someone who had survived 2 decades of special operations by listening to her instincts and the instincts of the people around her. Something in Raina's absolute certainty had triggered her own threat assessment protocols. She raised her hand, signaling the team to hold position, then activated her encrypted radio channel. "Overwatch, this is Bravo team. Request immediate thermal scan of grid coordinates." She rattled off the exact area that Raina had identified. 30 seconds later, the response came back. "Bravo team, Overwatch. Thermal signature confirmed. Single heat source, elevated position, consistent with sniper placement." The clearing went dead silent, except for the whisper of wind through pine needles. Commander Brooks looked directly at Raina, her expression shifting from professional skepticism to something approaching respect. Then she spoke into her radio with quiet authority. Overwatch, this is Bravo team leader. We have positive identification on hostile sniper position. Request you relay the following message to our technical specialist. She paused, her eyes never leaving Reyna's face. Sergeant, take the shot. The words hung in the air for exactly 3 seconds. Then a single suppressed gunshot echoed across the forest, followed by the distant sound of a body falling through tree branches. Target eliminated, came the confirmation through their headsets. Threat neutralized. The entire SEAL team stood motionless, staring at Reyna with expressions ranging from shock to dawning realization. How? Johnson whispered. How did you know? Commander Brooks would later testify. Her eyes didn't show fear or uncertainty. They showed the kind of calm certainty you only see in people who have lived through situations where being wrong means everyone dies. The forest remained deadly quiet after the sniper's elimination, but the silence among the SEAL team was even more profound. 7 elite warriors stood frozen, staring at the woman they had dismissed as just technical support, trying to process what had just happened. Bravo Team Overwatch. The voice came through their headsets. Thermal scan shows 3 additional heat signatures moving to flank your position. Recommend immediate tactical adjustment. Before Commander Brooks could respond, Reyna was already moving. Her entire demeanor had changed. Gone was the quiet, unassuming support specialist, replaced by someone who moved with the fluid precision of a predator. 2 more snipers, 1 spotter, she said, her voice carrying an authority that made the entire team instinctively take cover. They're repositioning to cut off our extraction route. We go left, through the ravine. We can get behind them. How could you possibly know? Rodriguez started to protest, but Commander Brooks cut him off with a sharp gesture. You heard her. We move left. Johnson, take point. Rodriguez, rear guard. Vasquez. She paused, studying Reyna with new eyes. You call the shots. What followed was 20 minutes of the most precisely coordinated tactical movement that any of them had ever experienced. Reyna guided them through terrain that seemed impassable, positioning each team member with an understanding of sight lines, cover, and fields of fire that bordered on supernatural. Chen, 15 degrees right, prone position behind that fallen log. Rodriguez, you have overwatch from the ridge. Johnson, when I give the signal, you advance to that cluster of boulders. Each instruction was delivered with quiet confidence, and somehow every team member found themselves in exactly the right position to neutralize threats they couldn't even see yet. The engagement lasted less than 5 minutes. 3 enemy combatants eliminated with precision that would be analyzed and praised in classified after-action reports for years to come. 0 friendly casualties. 0 margin for error. As they secured the area, Seaman Chen found something on the ground near Reyna's position, a silver challenge coin that must have fallen from her gear during the firefight. He picked it up, and his face went white as he read the inscription. Silent Hawk, he whispered. 203 confirmed eliminations. The words carried across the team's communication channel like an electric shock. Every SEAL knew that designation. Silent Hawk was a legend in special operations circles, a ghost sniper whose confirmed kills had saved countless American lives across multiple theaters of operation. Commander Brooks walked over and took the coin from Chen's trembling hands, studying both sides carefully. Her face showed a mixture of awe and something that looked almost like fear. Kraken Unit, she read aloud. That was a mythical designation. They said Kraken Unit didn't officially exist. It didn't, Reyna said quietly, accepting the coin back and tucking it into her gear. That was the point. Johnson found his voice first. You're Silent Hawk, the Silent Hawk, the one who took out the entire Taliban command structure in the Helmand province. The one who saved SEAL Team 6 during the Kandahar extraction, Rodriguez added, his earlier mockery completely evaporated. The one who held off an entire enemy company for 6 hours while calling in surgical airstrikes, Chen whispered. Reyna looked at each of them in turn, seeing in their faces the same expression she had hoped to never see again, the mixture of respect and distance that came from being viewed as something other than human. I was part of a team, she said simply. We did what needed to be done. But you left, Commander Brooks stated. It wasn't a question. I lost my spotter, my partner, someone who had been with me for 3 years, who knew how I thought, how I breathed. Miguel Santos. Her voice caught slightly on the name. A mission went wrong. Command error, bad intelligence, something. Miguel didn't make it home. The team stood in respectful silence, understanding without explanation. In their world, losing a partner wasn't just about grief. It was about losing part of your operational identity, the person who made you complete in the most dangerous situations imaginable. So you transferred to technical support, Brooks said gently. I requested assignment to support roles where I could still serve without being responsible for making the calls that get people killed. Johnson stepped forward, his face flushed with embarrassment. Ma'am, I owe you an apology. We all do. We had no idea who you were, what you'd sacrifice for people like us. That's the point, Raina replied. I didn't want you to know. I wanted to serve without the weight of expectations, without people looking at me and seeing Silent Hawk instead of just Raina. But tonight, Commander Brooks said, you saved all of us. You stepped back into that role because we needed you to. Tonight, I did what anyone with my training would have done in the same situation. No, Brooks said firmly. Tonight, you did what Silent Hawk would have done, what only Silent Hawk could have done. She keyed her radio to the command frequency. Overwatch, this is Bravo team leader. Mission accomplished. But I need to add something to the after-action report. The technical specialist assigned to our unit, she's not just technical support. Copy that, Bravo leader. Explain. Overwatch, you sent a Silent Hawk. The radio went silent for nearly 10 seconds. Then, confirmed, Bravo leader. We were wondering when you'd figure that out. The revelation hit the team like a physical blow. Command had known. They had been assigned one of the most legendary snipers in special operations history, disguised as a support technician. Why? Johnson asked. Why hide someone like that in a support role? Commander Brooks looked at Raina, then back at her team. Because sometimes the most valuable people are the ones who choose to serve quietly, who use their skills to keep others alive rather than to build their own legends. She turned to address Raina directly. But tonight, when it mattered most, you were exactly who we needed you to be. I've always been who you needed me to be, Raina replied quietly. You just couldn't see it. If you've ever witnessed someone being underestimated, only to prove they were extraordinary when it mattered most, type, I owe a debt. Even after the revelation of her true identity, Raina returned to her routine as if nothing had changed. The next morning, she was back to inventory checks and equipment maintenance, declining the team's offers to treat her differently or assign her to tactical roles that matched her legendary skills. But everything had changed. The dynamic within the SEAL team shifted in ways both profound and subtle. The mocking comments stopped entirely, replaced by a respectful quiet whenever Raina offered observations or suggestions. Equipment that had been casually maintained suddenly received meticulous attention as team members realized that their technical support understood their gear better than they did. Johnson approached her during equipment prep for their next mission. Raina, would you mind checking my rifle sight alignment? I want to make sure everything's perfect. Of course, she replied, handling his weapon with the kind of casual expertise that spoke of thousands of hours of training. Your 0 is slightly off. Here, let me adjust that for you. Within a week, word had spread through the entire special operations community. The legendary Silent Hawk was serving with SEAL teams, hidden in plain sight as a support specialist. Requests came in from multiple units asking for her assignment to their operations. But Raina consistently declined tactical roles, preferring to continue her work, ensuring that other warriors had the support they needed to complete their missions and return home safely. I don't understand, Chen said one evening as they prepared for another operation. You could write your own ticket to any unit, any mission. Why stay in support? Raina looked up from the communication equipment she was testing. Chen, what's more important? Being the person who takes the shot or being the person who makes sure the shooter has reliable equipment and gets home safely? I never thought about it that way. I spent years being the person who took the shots. Now I want to be the person who helps others succeed in their missions. It's a different kind of service, but it's still service. A handwritten note appeared on the unit's bulletin board that week. Trust Silent Hawk, but remember, she prefers to be called Raina. Nobody knew who had written it, but it stayed there for months, a reminder that legends can choose humility over recognition. The most significant change came during their next mission briefing. When Raina offered tactical observations, Commander Brooks didn't just listen. She actively sought Raina's input on strategy, threat assessment, and mission planning. "What do you think about the approach route?" Brooks asked, spreading the reconnaissance photos across the table. "I'd recommend this path instead," Raina replied, tracing an alternate route. "Better concealment, multiple fallback positions, and cleaner extraction options if things go sideways." The entire team leaned in to study her suggested modifications, recognizing that they were receiving guidance from someone whose tactical expertise had been proven under the most extreme circumstances imaginable. That night, alone in her quarters, Raina held the silver challenge coin and spoke quietly to the empty room. "Miguel, I found a different way to serve. I'm still protecting our people, still making sure they come home. Just from a different angle now." She placed the coin carefully in its protective cloth and tucked it back into her gear. Tomorrow would bring another mission, another opportunity to use her skills to keep others safe. The difference was that now her team knew exactly who was watching their backs, even if she preferred to do it quietly. Type, "I will live kindly" if you believe that true heroism often wears the uniform of humble service. This wasn't just about a nighttime military operation. This wasn't just about one woman's hidden expertise saving a team from an ambush. This story cuts to the heart of how we value the people around us and what we choose to see when we look at someone whose role appears to be supporting rather than leading. Reina Vasquez's story is happening right now in workplaces, communities, and organizations everywhere, wherever extraordinary people have chosen to serve in ways that don't demand recognition or spotlight. It's playing out in hospitals where experienced nurses guide new doctors through complex procedures, in schools where veteran teachers mentor younger colleagues, in businesses where skilled professionals work behind the scenes to ensure others can succeed. Think about the people in your life who you might be overlooking because their current role doesn't match their full capabilities. The administrative assistant who might have an advanced degree and decades of industry experience. The maintenance worker who might understand the building systems better than the engineers who designed them. The support staff member who might have leadership experience that could benefit everyone if anyone bothered to ask. We live in a culture that often equates visibility with value, that assumes the most important contributions come from the people in the most prominent positions. But real life teaches us something different. Real life teaches us that the most critical support often comes from people who have chosen service over status, who use their skills to enable others rather than to build their own profiles. Reina could have leveraged her legendary reputation to secure prestigious assignments, command positions, media attention. Instead, she chose to use her expertise to ensure that other warriors had the support they needed to complete their missions and return home safely. She understood that there are many ways to serve, and that sometimes the most valuable service happens in roles that others don't fully appreciate. The SEAL team that initially dismissed her learned a lesson that extends far beyond military operations. Never underestimate someone based on their current position. The person maintaining your equipment might be someone who once operated equipment you've never seen. The person providing support might be someone who once led missions at the highest levels of complexity and danger. Every day you work alongside people whose full capabilities remain hidden because they've chosen roles that don't require them to display their complete skill set. The challenge is learning to recognize expertise wherever it resides, to value contribution regardless of hierarchy, and to understand that some of the most skilled people prefer to serve quietly rather than to command attention. Tomorrow, when you interact with someone in a support role, remember Silent Hawk. Remember that the person helping you might be someone whose experience and expertise far exceed what their current position reveals, and that their choice to serve others might be the most heroic decision they've ever made. If you believe in stories that touch the heart like this one, leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe to NL Touching Stories. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten. Real people are creating and telling stories, not mass-produced AI.